You know, when the first episode of the DanDaDan anime dropped all those months ago, promos and clips on social media everywhere caught my attention pretty much immediately. However, I was so intrigued by what I saw that I actually picked up the manga and decided that if I liked it enough, I would catch up to its then current chapter, and afterwards start the anime to look at how exactly it's adapted from the source material. And that's precisely what I did. With season 2 set to premiere later this year, I figured it's about time I finally made this video. There are a lot of reasons why I think DanDaDan has become so polarizing. Of course, a sensational anime adaptation of an already successful shonen will do it. But besides that, there's an obvious charm to the story, and though it's hard to put a finger on what exactly that is, I think I might have an idea. When you look at how the main cast of characters is handled, there's a lot to appreciate that can often be overlooked in many other stories. Until recently, I would say the main plot of DanDaDan has been fairly simple and straightforward, with a narrative structure that kind of lacks an obvious direction when you think about it. And well, new characters that will all seemingly have meaningful recurring roles moving forward are still being introduced. In the last couple of arcs, prominent characters like Bamola, Sakata, Zuma, Rin, and Yukishiro have all become welcome additions to an already stellar cast of likable characters. Each one has been introduced with their own compelling backstory as well, in a fashion that, though sort of predictable, still hasn't once failed to convey real emotion, despite the story's unserious tone. And underneath the surface, each of these characters stands for something. They have their own agency in the story. There's something the author is clearly trying to say with every single one of them. Speaking of which, Yokinobu Tatsu has some pedigree in this medium, having worked as an assistant of Tatsuki Fujimoto on both Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man, as well as an assistant of Yuji Kaku on Hell's Paradise. Because I haven't read Fire Punch nor Hell's Paradise, I can't really say anything about him. But when it comes to Chainsaw Man, I believe there's this kind of chaotic energy in its storytelling that can also be seen in DanDaDan. Characters being so unapologetically themselves, the balls-to-the-wall action, the variety of tones as the story progresses, and mainly just how absurd and unhinged everything can feel at times. Don't get me wrong, DanDaDan sauce is 100% its own. I only look at Tatsu's previous contributions to get an idea of how that shaped the creator he is today. I mean, DanDaDan isn't his first manga either. Again, I haven't read his previous works, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I just get the feeling that this is a guy that has just really hit his stride, and maybe that could add some context behind his success and how he's able to constantly introduce characters worth actually caring about. Starting with the protagonist, Momo, I don't think is your typical main character. I mean, sure, what does that even mean nowadays, right? She does have a lot of the traditional qualities of a main character, but how the narrative handles and juggles romance, action, and high stakes brings out what makes her so fun and interesting. Something that could also be said about the rest of the cast for the most part. In her case though, the spotlight is very much shared with Okarun. And though I feel that she's the clear protagonist, how Momo's character bounces off Okarun's only elevates both of them. It all revolves around their romance and how one always seems to have what the other lacks, and vice versa. Momo's brash and attractive, but has her own quirks, to put it lightly, and really struggles to say what she feels sometimes, while Okarun is the unconfident otaku who's only able to muster the courage when it comes to protecting Momo and the people he cares for. Frankly, I don't think they could complement each other any better, and yet they do. As the story continues to develop, they only grow as individuals and as a duo. Their bond becomes something special in little to no time, right as Ira and Jiji are then folded into the story, and quickly become proof that Tatsu really has a knack for writing characters you'll just want to become invested in. Despite Momo and Okarun being the heart and soul of the narrative, it's everyone around them that really makes DanDaDan what it is. The plot of the story, like I said, is simple and straightforward. It follows Momo and Okarun navigating the worlds of the paranormal and the extraterrestrial as they draw the attention of these outside forces, hell-bent to wreak havoc on the world. Pretty simple, right? Well, yeah, considering that's mainly just translated to looking for a pair of balls for most of the story. But see, it's what allows for these characters to shine through their interactions with each other. It's not so much that they're complex characters, but characters that are genuinely compelling and often feel like they have so much more to offer beyond their role in the ongoing plot. In fact, the ongoing plot often feels like it actually serves to introduce and tell their respective backstories. And I think Jiji and Zuma are perfect examples of this. To be fair, this is kind of a trend that actually starts with Ira and her origin story with Acrobatic Silky, but is only refined with Jiji and later Zuma. They all share a lot of similarities that highlight what I believe to be the peak of DanDaDan's writing. At first, Jiji seems to have all the qualities that would theoretically make him a classic jock in most stories, and an obvious rival to our boy Okarun, considering he has history with Momo as he was actually her first crush when they were kids. And though that is the case, the way the whole dynamic is tackled here is surprisingly refreshing. Jiji's got a couple of screws loose but is genuinely a good kid, who first shows up for Seiko's help as he and his family have been cursed. Soon after being introduced, one of the first things he does is apologize for the way he bullied Momo in the past, and the danger he'll be putting her considering his circumstances. When it comes to Okarun, Jiji respects and values him, and he really sees Okarun as a friend before anything else. Though they do quickly develop a friendly rivalry, it's actually a wholesome one that doesn't get in the way of their friendship, even after they're both vocal about their love for Momo. And later on, when facing the evil eye, even after it tormented him, killed 3 spirit mediums and cursed his parents, Jiji shows absolute empathy. During the Evil Eye arc, Jiji's good heart acts as an opening for the yokai to possess him. The Evil Eye was merely a boy who only wanted to play with other kids, but was instead locked away, forsaken, and eventually sacrificed. Upon turning into a spirit after death, it would then merge with another young boy destined to suffer the same fate, officially turning into the Evil Eye. Despite its desire to take revenge on the world, Jiji begged his friends to spare the murderous yokai. After witnessing its tragic story and understanding its pain and suffering, he promised to do whatever was necessary in order to keep it under control, and his empathy only sends him down a path of growth as he pushes himself in order to tap into his own power, leading to impressive feats later in the story. On another note, his friendship with Momo is one that comes from a good place. Even his advances are at most really kind-hearted comments, and so he's just overall hard to dislike. His interactions with Ira are just gold if you ask me. All while at the same time, it's Jiji's genuine friendship with Okarun and Okarun's decision to help him by negotiating and playing with the Evil Eye that just makes the whole thing work. And when you look at Zuma and his introduction later in the story, I think there's a similar approach taken, only done from a different angle. Giving off a serious bad boy vibe, we meet Zuma through Momo after she finally finds him in the cursed trunk known as the Danmara. Though they have no previous history, it was a lead on Okarun's ball that resulted in their encounter. Zuma needing the ball to access his powers inside the Danmara allows for a very fun and familiar dynamic between the two, as they're both stuck inside the cursed trunk with only one of their powers to lean on. Zuma and Momo share some friendly times, as well as seemingly a brain cell since they constantly match each other's energy, but it's the smaller and kind of intimate moments that shine a light on the quality of Zuma's character. In typical DanDaDan fashion, Tatsu finds any excuse to have any character undress. Similar to Okarun earlier in the story, we see Zuma give his pants to Momo to avoid any indecent exposure as they make their way through the dangers of the Danmara. And then when it's time for them to sleep, we see Zuma making sure Momo gets proper rest as he waits outside. Towards the latter half of the Danmara arc, we finally get Zuma's story, which is not only touching to say the least, but totally heartbreaking. Like seriously, not even kidding. This is a dude that has just been beaten by life over and over again. These few panels, to me, encapsulate the tragedy of his backstory and why he lives the way he does. As he beat on a cop, thinking of his mother's and younger brother's respective deaths, Zuma bore the exact same expression his mother did when she tried to drag him in front of a train along with her. The look of absolute hatred for the world. Zuma's origin also reveals how much his mom looked like Momo, which only adds layers to his character when looking back at their first interactions. By the finale of the Danmara arc, it becomes known that after getting arrested for beating that cop, another cop that was present ended up bailing him out to become his guardian. As a victim of the injustices of the world himself, Officer Bega saw hope in Zuma after hearing his story and insisted on providing for him, hoping that they could find in each other what the world once took from them. It also becomes known that it was the spirit of Zuma's little brother that turned into a yokai and gave him the powers of Brella Boy. However, when trapped inside the Danmara, the fairy tale card recognized this power and used him as a vessel by manipulating him, promising him the opportunity to destroy everything he once wanted in order to leave that cursed trunk. After a long-fought battle against Okarun, Serpo, and Officer Bega, he serves his purpose and is released by the fairy tale card, not too long before it's defeated. And despite everything, Zuma has recently returned looking to help Daiki, the first victim of the Danmara, which brings him to meet Ira and Jiji, leading to instant fireworks. See, and on the surface, the whole cast can be interpreted as made up of mostly common school kid stereotypes. You know, Momo's the popular girl who's actually a lot crazier than she looks. Takakura's the otaku who's into aliens, similar to Sakata, who's instead into mechas and kaijus. Ira and Jiji are the attractive popular kids in school. Vomola's like an exchange student when you think about it. Zuma's a street kid. Rin is literally referred to as class rep most of the time. And Yukishiro struggles with feeling acknowledged after failing to live up to her previous accomplishments. And yet, most, if not all, have at least one trait that either completely subverts their respective stereotype or really hyperbolizes them to fit the narrative. Like, Jiji's just goofy, despite being an athlete with a playboy vibe. Ira's actually proper as hell. Zuma and his guys are far from bad people. Rin goes from class rep to an idol star with gravity powers, while Vomola's literally an alien sent to Earth to survive as her people were being hunted, and Sakata actually gets to pilot a mecha to take down a kaiju, which was actually Vomola, but that's besides the point. Look, you get the idea. Ultimately, not only is Momo's relationship with each of these characters fun and unique in its own way, but the way the rest of the cast interacts between themselves is just chef's kiss. The whole gang shares great chemistry, and it's often the smaller moments that really bring them together. On top of all of that, it's the way the narrative manages to flash back to the origin stories of these characters to actually push the plot forward and flesh them out as individuals at the same time, what never fails to keep me engaged. Cause later on, when things are actually going down and the stakes are at its highest, seeing each of them come through for each other and have their moment under the spotlight just proves that this is a story very much built on the backs of its characters. And to me, that's just what DanDaDan does best. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you reaching the end of this video. What are your thoughts on DanDaDan, its characters and writing? Also, Granny Seiko or Queen Sensei? Anyway, stick around for more content. Much love and take care. Peace.